Now we tackle part 3. Some might consider this to be one of the more difficult sections. I personally think Esau have I hated and Jacob have I loved is one of the harder ones. I can understand Paul's argument here. He is pointing out, first of all, the fact that humanity has no standing to complain to his Creator. Rather, God is absolutely sovereign in his mercy, and when he uses that absolute sovereignty, even in his act of condemnation, in some way to serve the interests of his mercy, what right do we have to complain? God is always showing, above all, mercy. Then he confirms, as a good theologian, the truth of what he's been saying with two Bible citations, one from the book of Hosea and the other from the book of Isaiah, as if to say, this was God's plan all along. What I'm telling you is nothing new. This is the way God always planned it would be, and what we are seeing now fulfilled with our own eyes in front of us is the history that God has predicted would turn out just this way. Remember in verse 14, Paul had posed the question of God's justice by saying, God is not unjust, is he? And now in verse 19, he's resuming the argument from a different angle, and that is man's culpability. Are human beings really blameworthy if really God's goodwill is going to be done no matter what? Despite Pharaoh's evil will, yet God's good and gracious, merciful will is still going to be carried out, even in his condemnation. It's going to cause his name to be made great. Then why should anyone still find fault? Why should I be culpable if it's all going to happen according to God's will? Paul's answer to that is God is sovereign. God is our creator. Pots have no standing to question the one who made it. If God chooses to fashion different pots for different purposes, what right do we have to complain? Now, obviously, you can take this potter pot illustration too far and end up in the eternal decree to damnation. Paul never goes there, and it's pointless to try to argue that. We all know that with any kind of metaphor, there is an is and an is not. There's a point beyond which you say, we've gone past the point of comparison. The point of comparison just is God is sovereign when he shows mercy. We have no right to answer back. Beyond that, Paul is not trying to explain the mystery of God's hidden will, not at all. He's just saying that we have no right to answer our Creator back. Erais moi un ti un eti memphetai. You're going to say to me, well then why is anyone blameworthy? Why is someone still being blamed? For who is able to stand in opposition to God's settled will, his boule? Oh man, deep emotion. Yes, rather, who you are. Kind of interesting. Who are you who answers God's back? It's like a parent might say to a child, don't answer me back. Don't give me back talk. What right do you have to give back talk to God? That which has been fashioned will not say to the one that fashioned it, will it, why did you make me this way? We have no right to complain to our Creator. Or does not the potter of clay possess full right to do from the batch of dough some vessels or one vessel for an honorable purpose and another for a less honorable purpose? And the answer to that question is, of course, a potter has a right to fashion clay as he likes. So the point of the comparison is, God, our Creator, has the right to use all of us who deserve nothing but his wrath in ways that fulfill his good and gracious will. Listen to how Paul leaves the emphasis in the next verse on the goodness and the graciousness and the mercy of God as his ultimate purpose behind everything. So what if God, who was willing to display his wrath and to make known his mighty power, what if God instead bore with great patience a vessel of wrath that had fit itself for destruction, and in order to make known the rich supply of his glorious might upon vessels of mercy, which he prepared ahead of time for glory. So the backbone of the sentence is God even displays his wrath in the interests of ultimately showing his mercy in bearing with people for a long, long time. God endures the weight of the world's wickedness. We have no idea, for example, what it must have meant for Jesus. Not only was he bearing all our griefs and carrying all our sorrows in the days of his flesh on earth, but he was also living with people that every day just didn't get it. His own disciples just didn't get it. Just think of what a horrific thing that must have been for the holy God who dwells in light inapproachable to bear with day after day the horror of a sin-plagued world. God, instead of meting out immediate justice as everyone deserves, yet he bears with great patience a vessel of wrath that has completely fit itself out for destruction. And his purpose is in order to make known the riches of his grace upon the vessel of mercy, which he prepared ahead of time for glory. Notice the carefully constructed sentence as well. The vessel of wrath is certainly fit for destruction. It has fit itself out for destruction. The vessel of mercy was prepared ahead of time for glory. So in the one case, you have a predestination for glory. In the other case, you're getting what you absolutely have deserved, what you're fit for. Notice, too, that, as Dr. Becker used to say, the Roman Catholics might have read fit for in the second place. They might have said, vessels of mercy which have prepared themselves for glory because of their synergism, whereas a Calvinist would read katartismena as ha proi e toi mazin, which were prepared ahead of time, as if he was talking about the eternal election of a vessel of wrath for destruction. Becker says the mark of a true theologian in the Lutheran Church is to leave both as they are. We don't try to explain the logic of it. We say one was thoroughly fit for destruction. We say the other was chosen ahead of time to receive glory. Whom he also called, not only from Jews, but also from Gentiles. Here again we see God's new creation plan, his ultimate plan to create a new Israel out of Jew and Gentile. And he substantiates this wonderful thought by two citations. As he says in Hosea, I have called that which is not my people, and that which is not beloved, beloved. And it will be in the place in which it was said, not my people are you. Right in that very place will they be called sons of the living God. Now, as I've mentioned before, I see this as a typological prophecy. What Hosea said as being God's ultimate purpose in allowing his judgment to fall on the 10 tribes of northern Israel and their scattering throughout the nations is ultimately fulfilled in the gathering also of the pagan Gentiles into the company of God's people. For it surely can be said that they were not a people, and now he calls them a people. And right in that very place where it said, you're not my people, right there they will become sons of the living God. Isaiah says the same thing, crying out with urgency over the children of Israel. Even if the number of the children of Israel is as the sand upon the sea, a remnant will be saved. He will accomplish this logos, this deed or this sentence, by doing it completely and by making short work of it. I take those as modal participles. Says the Lord, upon the earth. And just as Isaiah says, if the Lord of hosts had not left behind for us a sperma, you see that word again, that key word that appeared at the beginning of the chapter, had not left behind for us a sperma, we would have been as Sodom, and as Gomorrah we would have been likened. To sum up, God has opened the way in his sovereign mercy for both Jew and Gentile to be part of true Israel. Not all Israel is Israel, he began, and now he's opening up the way to what the true spiritual Israel will look like, from Jews and from Gentiles. And then in a chiastic arrangement, he quotes from Hosea, Gentiles, and then he winds up with Israel, a remnant. This was all predicted from of old. I don't know what much more I could add. I think that's enough for now. I hope this at least gets you into this beautiful chapter.